We need to have something funny at the beginning. Okay, that was it. Hello, friends! Welcome to User Friendly, episode 11. Last time we thought it was episode 9, it was actually episode 10. So we skipped episode 10 and we're right at episode 11. My name is Erfon Elijah. I'm the founder of Mike Tees and a contributor writing for cultamac.com. I have here Mr. Roberto Hoyos from throwboy.com. How are you, my friend?
I am feeling better today. I'm recovering. We had Comic-Con this last weekend. We both were sharing a booth.
Yes.
And Comic-Con was a freaking ton of work.
Yes.
It's a lot of setup and breakdown, and you got to bring all your stock there. But it was a great time. Did you have a good con?
Yeah, mine was pretty good. You know, every time I go to a different convention, I realize that location is so key. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, to a certain extent, it's also what you sell, you know, what your product is, etc. But, you know, if you have crap and you're in the front, it doesn't matter. But, I mean, the two of us, we have really appealing things to that geek audience.
So. Yeah.
And this year, we didn't know that we were going to get, like, basically out into the back of the entire hall.
Yeah, so last year was our first year doing it, and we didn't realize at the time, we had a freaking great location.
Yeah, we were spoiled from the start.
Yeah,
because we never done a con.
Yeah, exactly. And the best place to be is right close to where the doors open, so everyone's going in and out. Mm-hmm. And we were facing away from the door, which means people could see us when they came in, but on the way out, we were like one of the last things they saw.
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, most people do, especially like these nerdy crowds, they'll go to everything, you know?
Yeah.
They'll go around to everything.
Several times, especially if they have 3-day passes.
Right, but you know, it's still a lot better to not be, you know, way out where they call the artist alley, where there's just tables of people with, you know, less professional type
and they
of
have
stuff.
much smaller tables. And they're usually selling their artwork.
And since we share, it's even smaller, you know? So we get like, instead of 10 feet, we get 5 feet, you know?
Yeah,
so,
give or take, because the tables are actually only like
8 feet. So we get 4 feet, you know?
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of like nitpicky, but every little inch counts on a table. And every like placement of where your stuff is and like where the eyeball's hitting, you know? All this kind of crap that we have to think about. And that kind of, we wanted to talk a little bit about that as a topic today. Just Comic-Con. And also seller / exhibitor's perspective of Comic-Con.
Yeah, what it's like to actually sell stuff at Comic-Con.
Yeah, so what have you learned since you started last year? And
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is visibility is key. And not just like where your booth is, but like, you know, like when you go to the grocery store and like you're walking around the aisles and all the things that are at your eye level are always the things they make the most money on.
Sure.
And I was just like, man, I never even really considered like where I hang the shirts, how the shirts are laid out, makes such a huge difference. The first day, I only had them hung behind me, and I feel like a lot of people would just kind of like walk past your table and they would just like totally go like this, and if they didn't see something that they liked, they just kept moving.
Right.
So the next day, we had shirts behind us, but also on the tables, and we got way more attention. Like people would be like going like this, and they'd see something they liked, and then they would immediately look up to see like what else you have.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that made a lot of difference. Just kind of, you have to catch their eye as they're coming by.
Right. Yeah. And our friend who does cons, like it's going out of style. Like every freaking month he has a con. He was the one that told us a lot of these people, especially in this crowd, they're not really that outgoing. So most of the time they're going to look down, they're going to look up. They're not going to look in the middle where you are, because they don't want to make eye contact with you right off the bat. So if you can find something that's going to catch their eye or make them laugh down here or up here, then that's where you get, you know, that's where you break the ice, and that's where you get the potential sale. And I remember last year I had Throw Babies way down at the kids' eye level. And that helped a lot. Like we sold a whole bunch
especially
of them.
at Geek Girl Con. Remember when you had those little pillow fighter things?
Right. Yeah. Down at the child's level, and yeah. So this year, I mean, we did a lot of extra stuff that we don't usually do. Like we did buttons and we did stickers, and just to have some sort of variant stuff.
Totally.
Because, but I noticed that a lot of like some of the kind of surefire sellers at Comic-Con, and it is kind of hard to tell each year, but are things like fan art, like things that people already recognize, but a different version of it.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, it's Link, but looks a little different. Or it's like, it's
totally.
Star Wars, but it's tweaked
or
to look
it's,
like
you
this.
know, John Wayne on a ton.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then you noticed that prints were a huge thing.
Yeah, so that was actually one of my other big realizations is we did a bunch of prints this year, and we don't even sell prints on our website. And that was kind of like the click for me. I was like, you know, I don't just sell graphic tees. Like, I sell independent art. Like, that's what these people see us as. Like, we're like an art company. And I was like, that's really what I've always wanted to be. So it was really cool selling prints because I'm like, a lot of people like don't want to wear t-shirts. They just don't wear t-shirts.
Yeah.
And we sold a ton of prints, and they were all like just like little 4x6 prints. So I have a con coming up this weekend actually, which is SakuraCon in the exact same place, and SakuraCon's even bigger than Comic Con. So this year, or at this con, we're gonna have like big prints, like 14x16 prints, 8x12 prints, and then 5x7 prints. So like, if you see a piece of artwork and you're not really into t-shirts, or you already have a million t-shirts and you don't want another one, you can have a really nice matted print that we're gonna sell.
Yeah.
And you can hang it in your office. You can hang it on the walls in your house. And actually, I was like, why didn't I think of this? I want to have.
You had to be across from Dennis to notice that this was a hot seller, right? Because
totally.
Our friend Dennis was like catty corner, and he was like selling.
He was slanging those prints.
Yeah. And he does his own characters, so he wasn't like, you know, oh, I'm doing Star Wars variants of this or Star Trek variants of that.
All original, you know, original artwork.
Which I mean, that's awesome. So if somebody that's selling something that's not even, you know, a take on something else
in the pop culture realm,
it's already just his own thing, and he's selling these big prints. I mean, that was a big revelation to both of us.
That was to me too. And another thing that I thought about, I was like, you know what? I would love to have some of these prints hung around my house. Like,
right? Yeah.
I never even had thought about that. I was like, dude, I would love to have like
like all like 3 on your wall.
Totally, like a huge like pop print like on my wall. Like, I had never even thought about doing that.
And I think a lot. I mean, my friend John talks about. He's like, it's really difficult to like find places that sell prints on the internet. Like, find places that sell cool prints on the internet. And maybe it's not being advertised that hard as far as like where you can get these things, or like marketed that well. You know, like show it on the wall. Don't just show it as like a thing.
I know,
you know?
A lot of people get lazy and they just have a digital copy of the print.
Right,
And it's just like, here's the picture, you should buy it. But that doesn't translate into a product in my eyes.
It's
like,
not tangible.
It's not tangible. Like, people need to see it and like hung in a cool room. And magazines do this all the time, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Cool catalogs. Urban Outfitters is really good about doing this type of thing. Like, their displays, I think, really are what sell their merchandise. So that kind of thing is really important.
But the nice thing, is that if you do prints, is you don't have to worry about size. You don't have to worry about like, are we gonna get it in that color? What material?
Do you have a green pillow or a red pillow? I can't decide.
And another thing I learned just personally is giving customers, and maybe some of my customers aren't going to agree with this, but giving customers like 1,000 different options. Like, oh, you can get OMG, but you can also get it small, and you can also get it in green and red and black and pink. It's like you give them so many options that they'll ultimately probably just be like, oh, well, I wanted it, but now I'm like overwhelmed with different choices, you know? Like, we had an example, both of us, where somebody walked up to the booth and they were ready to give us their cash, and then it slips out, oh yeah, but you can also get that in green and black and red or whatever.
And they go,
and they're like, oh, really?
And they get all confused, and sometimes they leave.
Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah, I gotta think about it.
You're like, what the hell? Why did I do that? So I'm learning, and I'm thinking about restructuring what I sell to just kind of like focus. And Comic-Con gives us that opportunity to get out there and see what is, I don't know, just the buying habits, you know?
Totally, and what's popular. I think that's the best thing, is like you get to see people's facial expressions, and then you get to see them react to different things. And
sometimes you actually do get good feedback where you're like, oh, okay. And it almost always doesn't come from somebody going, you should do XYZ. It just comes from seeing the same patterns happen over and over. Like, oh, are those stickers? Oh, are those stickers? Oh, are those stickers? And you're like, no, they're actually just prints. You know?
Yeah, I probably had that same conversation.
And then you're
times.
Like, shit, okay, they should be stickers.
Yeah, I should make these into stickers. Or, as Dennis, our friend, told me, like, make them larger so they obviously look like prints.
Yeah.
One last thing that I learned it's always an art form when you're selling. Like a lot of people aren't comfortable with selling. I actually don't mind it at all when it's a good product.
Mm-hmm.
But when people come up to the booth, especially nerdy people, like a lot of times they'll stand like 10 or 20 feet away because they don't want to engage you, right? And I do this too. Like you'll be walking by a booth or something like at a farmer's market, and it's like you don't want to get close because you're afraid that like they're gonna try and get your money from you.
Yeah.
And you just want to be left alone.
Right. And I'm like that with any store.
I am too. It's like I just want to do my own thing.
Go to Apple
right?
Store and I'm like, I don't want to get.
Yeah, I don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
I just want to. If I see something I like, I don't mind you talking to me about it. And that's the big thing. Like just initiating discussions. Like I feel like. For me, what I found the best thing that works is like when someone's coming up to the booth, if they're browsing, like the best thing to do is just to be like, hey, and then just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Just so you break the ice. Because you're like, how many times have you looked at something, but like the person who was selling it was really busy or doing something else, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be a hassle, so you leave.
That's the trade-off too. Is like even saying hi sometimes is like, oh, are they gonna just scamper away? You know,
right?
Like, or is it better because they were waiting for you to break the ice in some way?
Yeah,
and I think that's probably a better thing to do. Just always just say hello. You know,
I do too.
And it sounds so stupid, but it's
such a basic thing. Yeah, and then sometimes I'll try to tell a story about what they're looking at to really get them engaged with the product. And these aren't stories I make up; these are true stories that I think are actually interesting.
Yeah. So
and a lot of times, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times that will like churn them from a browser into like an actual, oh, I want this product now that I know your story.
I had to do that several times with the ICEO, and it was just like, you know, you're not selling it, you're just telling about it, you know? You're just saying like,
and that turns it into like just like it's a doll to like, oh wow, this is like a product that actually has like a whole story and history, and they're more invested in it. Well, let me ask you this. What was your favorite part of Comic-Con? Like, every year, what's your favorite part?
I always love the cosplay. It's so cool.
That's actually mine,
like,
too.
it makes me jealous that I didn't think
And by
about
cosplay, you
it.
mean, like...
Costumes.
The costumes,
The people that, the cosplayers, as they've been called nowadays. I love seeing the costumes. And actually, I found a really good YouTube video by just Googling, or just YouTube searching, what was it? Emerald City Comic Con 2012. Yeah. And then somebody just made a big video montage of all of the different cool costumes. So I like that a lot. I also like, in the event that I can actually get away from my booth, I like wandering around and seeing the indie art. Like, there's some really talented people that sell their stuff for, like, pennies. You know, like, some people are very art-oriented and they're not very business-oriented. So they're like, wow, I made a sale today, you know? But it's like, not to diss on them or anything, but there's some very talented people, you know?
That's true.
And it's fun to see, like, the different artwork in person, you know?
Yeah, the costumes are definitely my favorite part. I mean... Actually, no, I take that back. The costumes are a close second. My favorite part is being among a bunch of people who love sci-fi, they love fantasy, and they love a lot of the same stuff that I love, and we just have like similar personalities in that regard. I love being around that community. I just think it has a lot of really great people in it, and a lot of people think it's just a bunch of nerds, and yeah, that's true. There are a lot of nerds there, but there are a lot of like hipsters there. There's a lot of cool people there. There's a lot of uncool people there. It's just a big mixed community, you know, and
it's all different kinds of nerds.
It's all different kinds of nerds, and they all revolve around the fact that they love costumes, they love fantasy and art, and they love sci-fi. And I think that part is really cool. And they love technology too. It's like all those things come together in one place. And then of course the costumes are amazing. Some of these costumes, I think my favorite one that I saw, and if you go to facebook.com/MightTees, I put up a gallery of a lot of the costumes that we saw. Was the Bender one?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. I'm not even a really huge Futurama fan, but dude, this guy's Bender costume was. We were commenting on it at the con. It was so intricate, like you could tell that they had like crafted this foam, and like all the seams were really well sewed together.
It was like going to a theme park.
It was like going to like a Futurama theme park.
Yeah, it was perfect, and I was like, wow. And then he had a Fry with him and a Leela,
right?
And and they had props too. Like he had a Slurm can, and they had some delivery boxes and a pizza box, like all with the logos like perfectly on it. That was really awesome. They must have a blast because they get to just hang out in the quad, like the middle area, and just have people take pictures with them all day. And they have poses already set.
Yeah, they do. And they're celebrities for a day. Yeah. You know, it's like in Comic-Con even has this huge wall set up where they have their logo all over it so people can pose in front of it and take pictures. Like, taking pictures with people who are dressed up is a huge part of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And people are always getting stopped in the aisles to get their picture taken. So, in any case,
so
Comic-Con 2012.
Now, we have our, we both did personal vlogs about, like, just start talking about Comic-Con while we're there. We're not going to stitch it into this video, but if you go into the show notes, you can click on both of our vlogs from Comic-Con.
We have links there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's move forward. It wouldn't be user-friendly if we didn't spend at least some time talking about Apple.
Yeah.
As we're both big Apple fans. But more specifically, big Steve Jobs fans. So the big news for this week that had me roll my eyes in my head back so far, I think I almost spun them around, complete 360.
Yeah.
Actually, let's just jump right into this.
Yeah,
Ashton
you already said
Kutcher.
it.
Yeah, Ashton Kutcher is going to be playing Steve Jobs in a movie. And it's reported that he's canceled all other projects to take this on. And he has been reported as saying this was a role that was meant for him.
He said that?
He said that. And
I thought maybe his publicist said that or something like that.
I think
because he's not allowed to tweet, you know.
Oh, right. He's not tweeting for himself anymore. Yeah. Let me see here. And he's already talking to Steve Jobs' friends to really get in the role. And actually, the premise of the movie, I think, is good. It's going to focus on Steve Jobs in his younger days. So, like, before Apple, creating Apple, during that time period, which I think is cool, right? Because it's a time period that I think a lot of people don't know about. So I think it's really interesting. But
that's like a third of the book, right?
I actually haven't finished the book, so
it's about a third of the book.
It's a big part of it, though. Before I give my opinion, I kind of already alluded to what my opinion was about this. Let me ask you what you thought when you heard Ashton Kutcher was going to play this role.
So this came out on April 1st. So I, like a lot of people, thought it was a joke.
I did too, yeah.
I think it's one of those things where my heart of hearts disapproves so hard that I can't even, that I have to just brush it off. That I have to just be like, nah, I don't care. Like, whatever. I don't mind. Like, that's how I have to be because it's so, like, oh, really? But then I have to just, like, act like I don't care because I haven't really, like, digested it yet. Like, I haven't been like you and a lot of my other friends that are just like, what the fuck?
As soon as it happened, yeah.
And
I pretty much had an opinion about it.
I would rather ask you this question.
Okay, well,
because you're more eloquent than I am.
Here's exactly the thought process I have had. So when I first found out, I was pissed, really pissed, and it's because I feel like in Hollywood, Ashton Kutcher is regarded as like this highly technological person. We always joke that he created email.com, like he invented email. Because, like, he started a Twitter account and he was on Oprah showing her how to use it. I feel like everyone thinks that he's highly technical, and he's not. He's just an actor who is more technical than other actors. And he gets a lot of credit for things I think that he doesn't deserve credit for, like being technical. And he gets put in a lot of movies where I'm like, he doesn't seem like he's very well cast. And I personally don't think he's that great of an actor. I think he's really good at being goofy. So, for me, I was really disappointed because I was like, does he look like a young Steve Jobs? Yeah, he kind of does resemble him in a way.
A little.
But my big thing is the acting. Like, for him to say he was meant for the role, I'm like, that's just feeding into the whole, oh, you're so technical, aren't you? You just get everything Apple does. And so you're so perfect to play Steve Jobs, aren't you? Because you're just like him. For me, I kind of wish they had picked an unknown actor, somebody that nobody knew, and had used that role to kind of launch that person. Because I think that this is such an important role that it's going to taint it having Ashton Kutcher do it. Now, in that regard, I do have hope that this will be a redeeming movie for Ashton Kutcher for me. I don't dislike him personally. I obviously don't know him.
You do dislike him.
I don't dislike him personally. I dislike the fact that he gets a lot of credit for things I feel like he doesn't get credit. He doesn't deserve credit for.
What's another example?
Being a great actor. Like, I don't think he's a great actor. Like, he's been in a lot of goofy movies, like Dude, Where's My Car? And that stupid movie with Natalie Portman, and that other stupid movie that he's been in with all those other actors. Like, I mean, there's so many stupid movies that he's been in.
He's like a Ben Stiller or something.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't even put him in that category. Ben Stiller is actually funny. I feel like Ashton Kutcher is one of those guys who's good looking and gets roles because he's good looking. And are there people out there that disagree with me? Yeah, obviously there are, but that's my personal opinion. And so I think that he has a very unique opportunity, at least in my eyes, to like really put a lot. He said, from everything I've been reading, he's pouring himself into this role. And I think that's great. Like maybe he'll really be able to pull off a magical performance, which I would love to see him do. Honestly, I'm not rooting against him. I would love to see him pull off a magical performance and have everyone be like, "Wow," you know, like Jamie Foxx did for Ray Charles,
right, yeah,
like where it's like, "Whoa," you really.
Because a lot of people thought that was a bad cast.
And I was among those people too.
Uh-huh.
I was like, Jamie Foxx, really? Because he was really goofy too. Remember, like he was in Living Color.
So was Will Smith.
So was Will Smith,
Yeah.
and they really transformed themselves into good actors. And I would love to see Ashton Kutcher do that. I'm just a little worried that he's not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I love documentaries and I love biopics, and I my favorite genre of book is biographies and autobiographies. So, and my brother too, and so like all of our growing up years, we've like hunted down all of the different ones that we like for every like band, every actor, every musician, whatever like that we admire. So I've kind of gotten sort of numb to, oh, that one's played by that guy. It's not going to be that good. You know what I mean? Like, there's been ones of, like, Little Richard that have been played by, like, you know, like, bad actors, like, bad people, bad cast fits, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, I think at the end of the day, it's just nice to watch a movie with all of the setting, with actual actors, with, you know, all of the time period done in a okay way, you know? So, like, the actor choice for me, even though I'm not a fan of him at all, I don't know if it's gonna affect me that much. I'm just kind of like, I've seen a shitload of different biopics for like people that I really love. Like there's really terrible Beach Boys ones, there's really terrible Beatles ones, you know, like, but I still like to watch them as a movie, you know, like as a full on movie. I'd rather it be a movie than just be a book or just be stories. So that's where I'm coming from that perspective. Hey, at the end of the day, we'll always have Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Well, actually,
because that's a good movie too, which is available on Netflix, like Amazon, maybe on Netflix.
Sony Pictures
DVD.
actually purchased the rights to Walter Isaacson's biography about Steve Jobs, and they're developing a movie too.
Yeah, because this is supposedly an indie movie. I don't know what that means because lots of indie movies go mainstream, so I don't know what the fuck that means.
Well, I just think that it means that it was just some independent director who's putting together this whole movie.
Because that could mean
based
anything.
upon a script or,
You know?
And it was actually in development before Steve Jobs died. It's been in development for years before Steve Jobs died.
Changes a lot because, like I said, I watched a lot of these movies, and when they don't have like actual license rights to anything, to any content, they can turn out some pretty junky things that are just fabricated everything. You know what I mean? Like, they just make up stuff, like Yeah, I mean, admittedly, lots of these movies do, but like, I don't know. I mean, it could end up being a lot worse than an official tie into, you know, the blessing of the Steve Jobs family movie. You know what I mean?
Right, because Sony owns the rights to that. So at least to the Walter Isaacson biography.
So this could easily just, I mean, in today's movie culture, we reboot everything, you know? So like, this could easily just be like a little flash in the pan and then go away.
It could be, yeah. And I really do hope it's not more than that, or that it's more than that. Like I said, my hope is that he nails it and he transforms himself and puts out a really good performance.
I honestly wish that it just took longer to come out. But then again, I don't know. I guess Ray Charles' movie just came out right after he died.
Did it?
Yeah, because he had a little hand in like talking to Jamie Foxx and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'd rather see things like wait a little while before they jump on the movie.
Gotta hit it while it's hot, though, right?
bandwagon. But I don't know.
Because I mean, ultimately, this is a commercial venture. Like they're gonna try and make as much money as possible.
Yeah, and I don't know. Things feel like they come out fast, but really, it's gonna feel long too because it's not made yet. You know, so.
Well, let's move on to a similar topic. We're staying in the Apple realm, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Walter Isaacson. So Walter Isaacson was the one who wrote the Steve Jobs biography that a lot of people liked and a lot of people didn't like. And Isaacson was in Amsterdam recently for a talk at the John Adams Institute to talk about his biography on Steve Jobs. And during it, he retold a lot of the stories that were in the book, but he also did a Q&A. And somebody asked him what they thought about Steve Jobs personally and about his management style. Yeah, and they asked him, if he liked Steve Jobs. And this is a little paraphrase of his response, which I thought was really interesting. He said, "The word like is such a namby-pamby word that it doesn't begin to describe the kind of emotions you have when you're around Steve Jobs. Just that in itself is such a powerful statement. I became deeply and emotionally wrapped up with him, and near the end it became clear. He's lying in bed and he's wasting away and he's not going to make it. I became deeply emotionally inspired by him. I felt connected to him. I just felt awed by him. So to use the word like would to use one of those words that just doesn't do it justice because of all those complex emotions. I thought this was pretty crazy, and I've been reading actually more stuff that came out of this interview, and actually there's a video online, if you Google it, you can find it, and he talks a little bit more about it.
This is on Cult of Mac.
This is on Cult of Mac. The article I'm reading is on Cult of Mac, but there's a bunch of other ones out there, and actually there's a full clip that you can watch. I don't think that it has the, it's in Dutch, obviously, because that's where the video was filmed.
Yeah.
I thought this was really powerful. Here's a guy who didn't know Steve Jobs, and he got to be around him. And he left the situation, feeling extremely emotionally attached to him. And I think that maybe this is part of, Steve Jobs, like the Steve Jobs effect, right? What do they call it? The Steve Jobs reality distortion field.
Yeah.
Like he had a very unique way of affecting people emotionally, which I think is what got him a lot of what he wanted. During this interview, somebody else asked him about Steve Jobs' management style, and he recalled asking Steve about that, and he's like, you were pretty hard on some people, and Steve Jobs he's like, ultimately, he's like, I was around all these smart people who could have left and done other things if they felt that they were being abused, and they didn't go.
Yeah.
Like they stayed, and we put out some really great things. Like, a lot about Steve Jobs. What do you think it was about his personality that really drew people to him?
God, it's such a hard question,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you always hear things about just little things, as far as his charisma, or the way that he could stare at you, did you read that part in the book? The stare, him and his friend would work on this thing without breaking eye contact to really be able to psychologically screw with you. Yeah. And
it's like when your dog is bad and you're supposed to make eye contact with him until he looks away.
Yeah, and he would practice that. But I mean, I don't know, it's hard for me to pinpoint something that I think. But I feel like this is definitely a target for cynics to be like, oh, that's so stupid, he's just gushing over this guy or whatever, And I think that I read a really good book. I always talk about it, The Second Coming of Steve Jobs, where it's a lot of interviews. It's a story about Steve Jobs before he came back to Apple, after getting ousted from Apple. And it's a lot of those kinds of stories, a lot of feels like it's building him up in a way. It's oh, Steve would love to read this because it's building him up so much. But I guess if that many people speak about him in that way, then maybe that's what he was really maybe.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people were affected by him in a way.
You know what I mean? If that many people thought that he was awesome, maybe he was, and yeah, he did have his flaws, but somebody that was close to him in the last moments of his life, or the last time of his life. I mean, I don't know.
Just think about this, which I think is so strange. In the last months of your life, you're going to die. He spent his time working on Apple products.
Yeah.
He spent his life on a business, right? Apple's a business. And to me, that just seems strange. It's wouldn't you want to spend it doing other things? But I guess that's what he loved.
Yeah.
So he was doing what he loved.
But that was
I'm
his
how
heart
can you
and
be
soul.
so... Yeah, exactly. How can you love a business so much that in your dying days, you're working on a new iPad? It's I love working with Mike Tees, but if I find out I'm dying in a month, it's closed. I'm not going to spend the next month working on it. It's done. And I'm going to spend my time with my family and my friends and, and really reflecting and maybe that's what he did in the meantime, also while he was working on Apple. But there was definitely something different about him. I don't know. I think it was probably something that was cultivated throughout his life. I don't think that... Yeah,
and if you read the new Steve Jobs book, that's what they paint. They paint that picture of where did he get these traits? You know, how did these traits develop? You know, what were the parts of his life that changed him? You know, that's I think that's, I don't know, that's what he's trying to say in this book. You know what I mean? Like, and you read how much of the book?
Probably like a fourth of it.
Oh, okay.
How many pages are in the first chapter? I gotta finish that damn book.
I'm just like trying to relate back to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that part."
And it was actually like so long ago too. So, in any case, I do want to watch the rest of this interview. I just think it's interesting that this biographer, whose job was to come in and be objective, came in and was objective to us, I'm sure, to a certain degree. But you know, now that the whole thing is done, admitted like he kind of fell in love with the guy. Like, I don't mean that in a gay way, but it's like, dude, it's like he became emotionally attached to him.
Right, and I that's why I said that this is definitely going to be the target for cynics to be like, you know, because they don't know it, you know, then everybody wants to like put it down as far as why would you talk so highly about somebody, you know, especially somebody that was a dick or whatever, you know, like that. There's two sides to it, and in that book that I read called Second Coming of Steve Jobs, they talk about good Steve and bad Steve. You know, good Steve could be like the most charming person and you love him. Bad Steve could like put down your work and tell you it's shit. You know what I mean? The next day, the next hour. So like he had the very like different, you know, duality. And
he had a very caustic personality.
Yeah.
It is really strange to be that nice and charming, and then in the next moment be that destructive with somebody, you know, emotionally, and to disregard their feelings so intently. It just goes to show that his focus really was on creating products.
And that could be taken two different ways, you know. That could be taken the way that Isaacson's treating it, or it could be taken, if you're the butt of the bad part, it could be treated like, well, he's always an asshole, you know what I mean? So,
but what I do have to say this before we,
because I mean, sorry,
no, say it.
I was gonna say even Leander's perspective of Steve is more of a he's a jerk.
Yeah,
You know?
and a lot of people in the Apple community who know him well, that's their perspective, is like they're not able to see both sides. They really see that one side, like he was kind of a dick to people.
It's like meeting your hero and then he's a jerk to you.
Yeah, or or even worse, like he disregards you entirely.
Yeah,
He just pays no attention at all. But he was a shrewd business person, and that's one of the things I think is really important. Like when you're in business, you have to be shrewd. Like you have to be able to say, this isn't working, you're not working.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal, but this is a business decision. And to really make that discernment between personal relationships and business relationships. And this is something we've talked about before. Like you work with somebody and they're really likable, but they don't do good work.
Yeah.
And like you have to, for the sake of your business, in order to keep moving forward, you have to, cut them off.
Right.
And move on without them.
He talks about that in the Steve talks about that in the what's it called? The All Things D talk that he did with Bill Gates, the one that had both of them there. If you go to the very end of that video, if you can find the whole thing, or just find the Q&A part, that's what he talks about when people are asking him questions about business and stuff like that. He'll talk about that whole, you have to be a good, he called it, you have to be a good talent scout and be able to make decisions, be able to have, trust your, not instincts, but trust, I think
your intuition?
Intuition, yeah. And they talk about that a lot in the Isaacson book. How he went to India and they value intuition more than just like, I don't know, like what's the non-intuition, like like having to like be around somebody enough to be like, okay, well they're good at that, they're good at that, they're not good at that, just being able to like judge the character.
Right. He definitely had great intuition. I mean, he followed it, and he was wrong a lot, I'm sure, but he was good at correction. Like when he was good at realizing what he needed to correct and move forward. But well, that's it, dude. We're out of time for today. I could keep talking about Steve Jobs, but there's always next episode for that.
Yeah.
This has been user-friendly episode 11.
Yes.
I'm not sure what my brain and my mouth were just trying to do there. I was like, user-friendly. They were trying to go in two separate directions. Roberto, if I wanted to read some of your tweets, I heard you have a great set of tweets.
Set of tweets?
Yeah, so if I wanted to see those tweets, how would I go about doing that?
That sounds so wrong. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter is... my Twitter
See, it's contagious, dude.
Yeah. My Twitter is Roberto Hoyos, RobertoHoyos. That's my full name spelled out. And then I'm also on Twitter as Throwboy, and it's Throwboy.
And if you're interested in Might Tees, it's MIGHTTEES on Twitter. And I'm just Erfon on Twitter, ERFON. And thanks for watching.
Yes.
This has been user-friendly.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Yeah, and userfriendlyshow.com. We will catch you guys next time. I'm doing the double piece. The double
me
salute.
too.
Oh,
okay.
nice. Oh, never mind.